In this video, you'll learn how to build an entire portfolio website using Django and Python. I'll walk you through everything step by step, and by the end of the video, you'll have a great project that you can extend and build into something really unique. Now we'll combine this project with a little bit of JavaScript and CSS, and we'll use some more advanced Django features to show you how to connect to a database and how you can programmatically add different projects. This is a great starting project if you need a portfolio website, and something you can definitely consider adding on your resume if you extend it and make it that much better. With that said, let me give you a quick overview of the project and you can see what it actually looks like and what you'll be building. So I have the project in front of me and I'll quickly walk you through it. This is a portfolio website that demonstrates a few different projects that you've built. Obviously, you can make it look better, but the idea is to give you the base and do all of the heavy lifting, and then allow you to style it and make it unique. So you can see that we have some different projects. I can click into AI Plays Flappy Bird, for example, and I can see a description, a link to the GitHub, and then some different images for the project. Maybe I want to go and view my multiplayer Pictionary. Same thing, I can view some different images of what it looks like, and then go back home. Now, another thing that we've added is some filtering. So if I click on JavaScript, for example, it will filter all of the projects that have a JavaScript tag. We can go back to Python, and you get the idea. We can view these filtered projects. We can also search for a project, so something like AI, and then we see that AI Plays Flappy Bird pops up. So I know this looks pretty simple, but I promise you this is a great project, and it's going to teach you a ton about Django and Python. Now, building a portfolio website is great and all, but it only means something if people can actually see it. That means that you need to deploy the site, and that's actually a great skill that you can demonstrate on your resume and in an interview. Now, one of the best ways to deploy this site is actually by using the sponsor of this video, Hostinger. Now, Hostinger is a super easy to use web hosting platform that offers a ton of different options for any use case. Now, for this type of website, we're going to be looking at their virtual private server plans, which give you complete control over the server. They let you log in with root access, and you can do all of the advanced configurations you need for deploying a site like this. So if we scroll down, you can see that they have really affordable options here, and what I'd recommend is checking out their KVM too. So what I'll do now is select this plan and just walk you through quickly how you could actually go about hosting this site using Hostinger. So our first step here is to select our period, create or sign into an account, and then choose one of the various payment methods, and make sure we click on have a coupon code and enter my exclusive code, Tech with Tim. Now, once we've done that, we'll be brought to a page where we can set up our virtual private server. So the first step is to select our location, and you can just pick whatever's closest to you for the lowest latency. So now we can choose our operating system where we have a lot of different options, but what we can actually do is use a template here from Hostinger. If we go to applications and we simply search for Django, you can see that they have a template that will already set everything up for us. And now we need to set a strong root password so that we're able to actually sign into our VPS and do the configuration later on. So now that our VPS has been set up, we can view all of the different details and configuration options from this dashboard right here. But the next step is to actually SSH into the VPS and start configuring it for deploying our Django site. Now, there's quite a few steps here, and I can't show you in just a few minutes, so what I'll do is I'll leave a link to a video in the description that will walk you through continuing this deployment. Regardless, you'll need a VPS to do this, so first, check out Hostinger from the link in the description, make sure you use my special discount code, and once you have the VPS, then you're ready to deploy this so people can actually see your portfolio website. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now, as a reminder, we're going to be using Django for this project. So the first thing we need to do is install Django. We also need to install another package that we need. Then we'll create the Django project, set up our Django application. I'll walk you through it step by step. So what I've done here is opened up Visual Studio Code, and I've just opened up a new folder. You can do this in any editor that you want, but if you want to follow along exactly with this video, just open up VS Code and open some folder. In this case, I have my Django portfolio, spelt incorrectly, opened. Anyways, that's fine. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start by installing Django. Now to do that, I'm going to type pip3 install and then Django. Now if you're on Windows, you can change this to be pip, and this should install the Django framework for you. Now if you want, you can create a virtual environment to install this inside of, but it's not necessary for this video. Now after we install Django, we need to install Pillow. So this is with a capital P, and this is because we'll be displaying some images for our projects, and Django needs Pillow in order to display those images. So pip3 install Pillow. You can see I already have this installed in my Python installation. Now if for some reason these commands didn't work for you, I'll leave two videos on the screen that show you how to fix them. Okay, so now that we have Pillow and Django installed, it's time to create a new Django project. Now to do that, we can type Django admin, and then we're going to type start project, and then we're going to give this a name. Now I'm just going to call this portfolio, and I'm going to spell it correctly this time. And when I do that, you should see that we get a portfolio directory created inside of the folder that we're in. Now, for some reason that didn't work for you, what you can do is type python3-m and then Django admin start project portfolio. If that doesn't work, you can try python-m Django admin start project portfolio, and one of those commands should work. Otherwise, leave a comment and I'll try my best to help you out. Okay, so now we have a Django project, and if we look here, we'll see that we have a bunch of files already created. So we have manage.py, we have a portfolio directory, we have an init, URLs, etc. Now what we need to do is cd into this directory. So we're going to say cd, and then we call this portfolio. So we're going to do portfolio here. And now we're inside of this folder that we just created. So now what we need to do is make a new app inside of our Django project. Now the way this works is that we have this kind of starter project right here, and this contains the global settings, the global files, and then we create individual applications where we can separate out different pieces of logic. Now in our case, we only need one application because this is a pretty small project, but in larger Django projects, you might have an app for authentication, an app for projects, an app for your career, whatever. Like you can separate the logic out into different applications, and those applications are kind of self-maintained, and you can typically bring them into other Django projects. Anyways, what we're going to do here is type Django, or actually, sorry, we're going to type python3 manage.py and then start app, and then we're going to give this app a name. Now in my case, I'm just going to call this main because it will be the main application. Now, if you're on Windows, again, you can just change this to Python. You'll notice the main difference here is from Mac to Windows or Linux to Windows. You have Python 3 in Mac and Linux, and you have Python on Windows. So when I do this, we'll see that a new folder gets created called main, and it has some files in here for us. So you can see it's just kind of templating it out and building out all the different things that we need. From here, I can clear this and I can close the terminal, and now we can actually start writing some code and setting up our Django project. So now that we've created this main application, the next thing we need to do is go and link it to our Django project. So we're going to go into the portfolio directory. We're going to go into our settings.py, and we're going to write a few settings here that we need for our project. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import OS, which stands for operating system. We're going to use this in 1 second, and let's just close this terminal. And we're going to scroll down to where it says installed apps. Now notice we just created an app. So what we need to do is actually add the name of this application into installed apps so that we link it to the Django project. So to do that, we simply create a new entry here in this list called main, because that's the name of the app that we created. If you named the app something else, then you would change this name. Okay, now we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of settings, and just because we're here, we're going to write some settings that we'll need later in this video. Now what we're going to be doing is uploading some images, and these images will be for our projects. Now we need a place to store those images on the kind of Django server. So to do that, we're going to define the following. In all capitals, we're going to say media underscore URL, and notice I'm doing this at the very end of the file, is equal to, and then this is going to be /media, this time lowercase, and then /. Now this is a directory where we're going to store all of the different media files. In this case, we're going to store it on our local computer because that's where we're running the Django application. But if we were running this Django app on some kind of server and it was deployed, it would store in this media location. We're then going to say the media underscore root, this is where the media folder is actually stored, is going to be equal to os.path.join, sorry for the autocomplete there blocking us, and we're going to use the base directory, which is already defined. We don't need to define this, it already exists inside of this file. And then we're simply going to say media like that. So this is the URL, so this is where we should go to access the media files, and this is the actual location of it on our Django server. Okay, so now that we have the media URL and the media root, and we've added our application here into our installed apps, we are done with settings.py. Now what we can do is go inside of main. Now I want to quickly walk you through what we actually need to do here. What we're going to do is we're going to create some database entries or database models for storing our different projects. The idea here is rather than hard coding the projects in, what we'll do is we'll create a database field or a database kind of model, and we'll allow ourselves to dynamically add projects or to edit them or modify them later on. This way, this can be kind of a living website, and as you create new projects, you can update the site by adding new projects to the database. Now, in order to do that, we need to create some models. Now, in Django, I'm going to go in this models.py file, by the way, we use something called an ORM. Now, an ORM is an object relational mapping. Now, what this means is that rather than writing all of this custom SQL code or database logic, we simply write some Python code, and then Django will map that Python code to the appropriate database operation. So what you're going to see here is we're going to define in Python what we want the data that we're going to store for our projects to look like, and then Python will automatically handle adding that to the database, getting it from the database, updating it, doing all of that tough stuff that we don't want to deal with. So what we're going to start by doing is going into models.py, and we're going to define a class, which is known as a Django model. So I'm going to say class, and then I'm going to call this project. Now we're going to have a few different models here, but the first model is going to represent a coding project, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say that this is models.model. So we're inheriting from that base model. And then inside of here, we're going to define all of the fields that we want to have for a project. Now the first field that we want to have is a title. So we're going to say title is equal to models.the character field, and then we're going to give this a max length of 200 characters. The next field that we want to have is a description. Now the description is going to be models.text field, and this is not going to have any maximum length. We'll just write it like this. Next, we're going to have some tags. Now we'll write this more in a second, but for now we're going to say that this is models.many to many field. And we'll fill this in for now. We're going to say tag and then related underscore name is equal to projects. I know that we haven't yet defined this tag model. We're going to do that in one sec. But the idea is for each of our projects, we'll have some tags. So something like Python, JavaScript, CSS, a game, a web app, and we'll be able to identify our projects based on their tags. So we can kind of filter by those tags. Now a tag will be a different model that we're going to create in a second, and we'll make an association or a relationship between the project and between the tag. Again, let's wait a second and we'll look at that. Next, we're going to have a link. The link is where we have the GitHub or maybe the live project running. So we'll say this is going to be models.url field because this will be a link. And we're going to say the max underscore length will be equal to 200. And we'll say blank equals true, which means it's okay if we don't have a link for the project. Lastly, we're going to implement a string method. And this is what will happen, or this is what will show when we print out this model. It's going to take in self, and we're going to return the self.title of the project. You don't need to write this, but it's good practice. Okay, so now that we have the project model written, we're going to write the tag model. So let's do that, and then I can explain better what this line is doing. So we're going to say class tag, and then inside here, this is going to be models.model. And then for our tag, we're simply going to have a name, and this will be the models, I think I spelled that correctly, .char field, and this will be maximum length of 100, and we'll say unique equals true. Now when we pass that key, it means we can only have unique names, so we can't have duplicated tags, which is exactly what we want. We're then going to have a string again, and inside here, we're just going to return self.name of the tag. Okay, now we need to make sure that we define the tag above our project, so let's just copy that and paste, so that when we try to reference the tag here, it's already been defined. Okay, so let's talk about this many-to-many field. Now, whenever we create different database models, we have the ability to relate them together. So in this case, we have a project, and this project will be related to some kind of tags. Now, the way that we do these relationships, or there's kind of three different types of relationships. We can have a one-to-one relationship, so one project is associated with one tag. We could have a one-to-many relationship, where one project is associated with many tags, or we can have a many-to-many relationship, where many projects can be associated with many tags. Now, in this case, that's the most appropriate type of relationship, which is why we write it this way, many-to-many, meaning this tag can exist on many different projects, and this project can have many different tags. Now, what we do is we specify the model that we want the relationship to be with, and then we have a related name. Now, the related name is the field name on this tag that will contain all of the projects. So effectively, what's going to happen is for each of our projects, we're going to have a linkage to the tag, and for each of our tags, we're going to have a link to all of the different projects that that tag exists on. That's kind of how many-to-many field works. There's other types of relationships as well, and in fact, we're going to look at one in just a second. Okay, so hopefully that's clear, but that's how we relate these fields together, and this allows us to create as many tags as we want that are unique, and then associate them with as many projects as we want. Okay, now lastly, we need an image. So we're going to say project image, and this is going to be models.model, and then we're going to specify the project that this image exists for. So this is going to be a models.foreign key, and we're going to say that we have a project. We have the related name equal to images, and then we're going to say on_delete. I'm going to explain all of this in 1 second, don't worry. We're going to have models.cascade, and then let me save that just so that we get some formatting. Next, we're going to have image is equal to the models.image field. Now for this, we're going to say upload_to, and then we're going to give this a directory name. So I'm going to call this project images and then slash. And then lastly, I'm going to say define __string self and then return. And we're going to return an f string here. And we're going to embed the self.project.title and then image. Okay, so let's quickly talk about what we just did here. The idea is that for each project, we're going to have multiple different images. Now, if we just had one image, I could have just taken this field and uploaded it or put it right on my project. But since we can have multiple images or no images, we don't know how many we're going to have, we need to make a new model that will store images for our individual project. That way we can have multiple of them linked to the project. Now, the first thing we need to do for each of our images is we need to understand what project they're associated with. Now, unlike our tags, one project image won't exist for multiple different projects. It's just one project image exists for one project, right? So this project can have multiple images, but this image can only be associated with one project. So in that case, we use the foreign key. Now, what this means is that we always have a single project for our individual images. Now, I know I've repeated that like 5 times, but I'm just trying to be specific here. And what we do is we specify that we're going to have a foreign key with the project model, and then the related name is the field that will exist on this project that stores all of the different images. So on my project, I'll be able to access images, and it will give me all of these different image models. Now, what onDelete specifies is that if this project that we're linked to were to be deleted, we should delete all of the images. That's what the cascade means, okay? Just means delete all of the different images that are associated with the project if that project is to be deleted. There's some other options here as well, but this is the one that we're going to use. Lastly, we have the image field, and this is just specifying where we actually want to store the images within our media directory. Then we have the string, and we're good to go. Okay, so those are all of our models. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I just want to create a directory inside of my portfolio directory, so this main one here called media. Now, the reason we need that is because we specified that inside of settings.py as where we're going to store the images, so we need to make sure that directory actually exists. Then inside of media, we'll have a project images directory that will be created when we start uploading images. Okay, so we're going to run the code shortly, but the next thing we need to do is make it so that these different models appear in what's known as the admin page. Now, the admin page or the admin portal is something that's provided by Django to allow us to automatically manage our different models. So we can go in there and we can create different tags, we can create different projects, etc. The thing is, though, we do need to manually add these different models to the admin page so that we can see them there. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go back inside of main and we're going to go to admin.py. Now, notice it says that we need to register our models here. So what we're going to do is import our models from the models file that we just created. So we're going to say from.models, import, and then we're going to import the tag, the project, and the project image, and we're going to register them. Now, we can just register them like this by default, but since we have some more complex models here, we have some links between tags, projects, etc. And let me zoom in here. What we're going to do is we're going to write a kind of custom registration. Now, what the custom registration means is that we can specify the different fields that we want to have and how we want to view these different projects. So let's start by doing the project, kind of admin view. Sorry, just stumbling here. All right, class project admin. And then we're going to say this is admin.modeladmin. And inside of here, we're going to specify a few different fields. And these fields, again, will customize how this looks inside of the admin kind of panel. So we're going to say list underscore display is equal to, and then notice that this is a tuple here. So we're using normal parentheses. And then we're going to do title and then link. Now what this means is that when we're viewing a list of all of the different projects, it's going to show us in that list the title and the link for that project. We could change the fields that we want, but this is what it's going to display. Next, we're going to say inlines is equal to a list. We're going to define that in just 1 second. And then we're going to say search underscore fields are equal to, and again, in a tuple, we're going to do the title. And then this time we're going to do the description. Now this is specifying how we're able to actually search for this project. So we can search based on the title, or we can search based on the description, because there is like a search box in the admin panel and we specify what fields we're going to be searching on. Lastly, we're going to have list filter, and this is going to be equal to, and then we're going to do tags, and then make sure you have this trailing comma. The reason you need the trailing comma is because if you just put parentheses like here, you'll see when I save, they go away. So I need this comma to make sure that this is treated as a tuple, because that's the object type that is expected here. Okay, now the list filter, this is how we can actually filter different objects. So we can filter them based on tags. So yes, we can search by the title or the description, but in this case, it will show us all of the tags and allow us to click a tag, and any project that contains that tag, it will show us. So just a nice way for us to be able to filter this. Okay, then we have inlines. Now what I'm going to do is define something that will be displayed inline, and the reason why we need this is because we're going to have other models that are associated with this project, and we want to edit them at the same time rather than editing them separately. So you'll see what I mean in a second, but I'm going to say class, and then this is going to be project image inline, and then this is going to be admin.tabular inline, and then we're going to say the model is equal to the project image, and we're going to say extra is equal to 1. Now extra equal to 1 just specifies how many of these we're going to be displaying in line. In this case, we're going to display 1, which means by default we're asking the user to upload 1 image, but we could be asking them to upload, say, 4 images or 5 images if we specified it like that. Okay, now inside of inlines, we're going to say project image inline. And again, what this is going to do for us is it's now going to display this that we've just defined, which is really a view to be able to upload an image while we are creating these different projects. Okay, lastly, we're going to define our tag admin, and this is going to be admin.modeladmin. This one will be a little bit easier. We're going to say list display, and this is going to be equal to simply name. And then we're going to have our search underscore fields, and this will just be equal to name. Again, remember that trailing comma. So just how we list it and how we search for it. And now that we've created these, what we can do is we can register them. So to register them here, what we're going to do is admin.site.register. We're going to start with the tag and then the tag admin. So what we're saying is, hey, for this tag model, we want to use this tag admin class as its customization. We're then going to say admin.site.register, and we're going to register the project and the project admin as its customization. And then lastly, we're just going to register the project image. So we're going to say admin.site.register. And then this one is going to be the project image. And this time we don't need any customization. The inline was used to be displayed inside of the project admin, but for the project image itself, we don't have any customized class. We'll just render this. Okay, we are almost done. Now what we need to do is start actually running the server. We need to make some migrations, which I'll talk about in a second. And then we can sign into the admin panel and we can see what we actually just coded out. So let's go up to our terminal here. And what we're going to do is start by applying some migrations. Now, whenever we make changes to our different models, what we need to do is we need to make migrations and then we need to apply them. Now, making migrations will create some files inside of Django in this migrations directory, which you can see here, which will specify the changes that need to be applied to the underlying database in order for the changes that we made to actually be applied. Once that file is created, then we need to apply those migrations by running the secondary command. So pretty much whenever you make any changes, you're going to run both of these commands in sequence if you are affecting your models. Okay, so we're going to type Python 3 manage.py and then make migrations. Now you're going to see when I do this that it will specify that we've created the following migrations, making a new model project, tag, and project image. Now we're going to say migrate. Okay, so you'll notice when I do that inside of migrations, we get those migrations files. And now when I click on migrate, what will happen is it will actually apply these different migrations and update the database. And you'll see now that we have a db.sqlite3 database that's been created. And now it has the provision for those different tables or for those models that we've made. Okay. Now what we need to do is create something known as a super user. A super user is something that can sign into the admin portal and actually modify these different, models that we've created, or add new projects, for example. So to do that, we're going to type Python 3 manage.py, and then this is going to be create super user. It's either make super user or create super user. I think it's create super user. And then we can give this a name. I'll just go with Tim. And okay, never mind. Let's just run it without a name. And you can see, okay, leave it blank if you want it to be Tim Rosica. I'll just call this Tim. You don't need an email address, but you do need a password. Okay, so type in some username and some password. It's then going to create a super user for you. Once you've created the super user, now we can run the server and sign into the admin portal. So to do that, we're going to type Python 3 manage.py run server. This will now run the server for us. And you'll see that it shows us the URL that it's running on, 127.0.0.1 port 8000. What you can do is hit Control on your keyboard and then click on this link. You'll see it's underlining when I do that, and then it will open this up in a new browser. Okay, so you see it's going to open this up for me, and it says the install worked successfully. Okay, no problem. And now what we're going to do is go to the /admin page. Perfect. So when I do that, you see that it brings me here. Again, when you're on this page, you're going to go /admin, and now we can sign in with the super user that we just created. This is all built by Django. We didn't code any of this. We've just added our models to this page. Okay, so I just logged in here, and you can see now that we can first manage groups and users. We don't need to worry about that, at least for this project. And then we have project images, projects, and tags. So what we can do is start creating a new project. To do that, I can go to add, and you'll see here that I have all of the different things that I specified. So my title, description, tags, link, and then the ability to upload an image. So let's go ahead and make a sample project just to test this out. For me, I'm going to say Python platformer. I'll say this is a Python platformer game made in Python with Pygame, exclamation point. For the tags, if you click on this plus button, you can make some new ones. So I'm just going to make some new tags. I'll say that we have Python, maybe we have game, maybe we have CSS, React. I'm just making a bunch of random tags. You can make whatever ones you want. Let's have JavaScript, obviously ones that are going to be relevant to your projects. And then what we need to do is actually select the tags. So you can just click on one and it'll be selected. But if you want to select multiple, then you can hit Control or Command on your keyboard and select multiple of them. So I'm going to do Python, and then I'm going to hit on game. And you'll see now that two of them are selected. For the link, we could put that in. Actually, let's see which one might be here already. Python platformer. Okay, perfect. It already has that for me. And then we can upload an image. So let me actually go ahead and do that. I have one on my desktop. And now we can go on, click on save. Okay, so now I've saved it, and notice that in my list view here, I have my title and I have my link for the project, and I could actually filter it by the different tags, which is what it's showing me right here. And then I could search for a project if I wanted to do that. Okay, so I think that's good for now. We've made one project. Obviously we want to make multiple of them, but for now we're just testing out to make sure the site is working. Now what we want to do is start creating some views so we can actually view these projects on the website and have a nice looking portfolio website. So let me get out of that, and let's turn off our server for now by just hitting Control-C on our keyboard and then clearing. Okay, so we've made the models, we have created a new project from the admin dashboard. Now what we need to do is actually display all of this information on the site. Now in order to do that, there's a few setup steps. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to go inside of main and we're going to make some new folders. We're going to create a templates directory, and we're going to create another new directory here called static. Okay, both of these are inside of the main directory. Now inside of templates, this is where we're going to place HTML templates that we can pass data to from Django, and render kind of dynamic information. Now this will be kind of where we write all of our HTML, and then inside of the static directory is where we're going to have our CSS and our JavaScript. So inside of static, I'm going to make a new directory called CSS, and I'm going to make another new directory called JS, and this is where we'll organize our JavaScript code and our CSS code. The reason why we put this inside of static is because these are files that don't typically change, and what will happen is we'll render them statically, which is different than how we render the HTML. You can look that up if you want some more information, but for CSS, JavaScript, and images, things that aren't frequently changing on your website, you typically have them in some kind of static directory, and they're loaded a bit differently than how we would load an HTML file. Okay. Now, last thing we need to do, we're going to make a new file inside of main called urls.py. Okay, and this is where we're going to place some URLs to kind of link the different views that we create. And inside of here, we're going to say URL patterns is equal to an empty list. We're going to write in that later, but for now, we'll just put it there so we don't get any errors. Okay, so what did we just do? We created the templates directory, the static directory with CSS and JS, and then we created the urls.py file with URL patterns with an empty list. Make sure you've done that. Now main is set up, and what we can start doing is actually rendering some content into our views. So what we're going to do now is go to views.py. Now in Django, when we actually want to display a page, we need to create something known as a view. Now a view is a function that will be called when we go to a specific root. Our root is something like slash or slash home or slash project with ID 1. We need to write all of those programmatically. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start by importing our models. So we're going to say from .models, import the project and import the tag. And then from render, we're also going to import getObject or 404. And I did not mean to do that. This is what we wanted right here. Okay, I'm going to remove this comment and I'm going to start writing a few different views. So the first view we're going to write is the home view. Now inside of home, we're going to take in the request, which is what we always take in. And we're going to say return, render, and we're going to render the request and then the home.html template. That's it for right now, What this is going to do is look inside of this templates directory for an HTML file called home.html. It's then going to render that template for us, which means it's just going to show the HTML on the screen. Let's define a few other views that we need. We're going to have a contact view. So this is going to say request, and then same thing. We're going to return a render of the request, and then this is going to be the contact.html. We're then going to say define project, and then this is going to take in a request, and it's also going to take in an ID because we need to know the ID of the project we want to render, and then we're going to return a render, and in this case it's going to be request, and then project.html. Okay, so there's some more things that we need to write here, but for now I just want to kind of stub the 3 different views that we need. Now what we're going to do is create some HTML templates that will represent these 3 different pages. So it's very important that you put these inside of the templates directory, inside of the main directory. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to render this code. So inside of templates, we're going to make some files. The first file is going to be base.html. We're then going to have home.html. We're then going to have contact.html. And then lastly, we are going to have project.html. Feel free to pause the video to create all of these different files. Okay, now that we've created these different files, we're going to go inside of base.html, and I'm going to start talking to you about something known as the Django templating engine. Now, Django is what's known as a templating engine, and what this allows us to do is dynamically render Python-like code inside of our HTML file. So rather than having to write a ton of different JavaScript, although we will write a little bit in just a second, we're able to actually take variables in Python and display them inside of the HTML. Now what we can also do is we can create something known as a base template that can contain something like the main styling, like the navbar, components that are going to exist on all of our different pages, and then we can render content inside of that template so that we can have all these different HTML files that just have slight modifications to the base template. You'll see what I mean in just a second, but for now let's write this out. Now keep in mind, All of this code is going to be available on GitHub. Some people do get lost because there is a lot of HTML that we're going to be writing here. So if for some reason this is not working for you, I'm going too fast, you're finding it overwhelming, feel free just to go to the GitHub link below, go right to this file, and then just copy all of the code, or at least view it side by side if you do want to write it out line by line. Okay, so don't get too overwhelmed. You can always find this from the link in the description. So what I'm going to do now is type HTML:5. Now, if you have the HTML extension installed in VS Code, which I do recommend that you get, you'll see that it will actually be able to generate a kind of boilerplate HTML document for us. So when I hit enter here, you'll see that it just creates this for me, and now we can start filling in some of this content. Okay, so we have our head, we have our body, we have our HTML, and then we have a title. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do here is create a new block. So let's look at how we do this. We're going to use our brace here, and then we're going to have a %sign, and then a closing brace. Inside of here, we're going to call this block, and then title. And then I'm going to put the name here, which is going to say portfolio, and then home. And then I'm going to put a %, and then end block. Now, a block is a piece of content that can be overridden from a child template. So this is going to act as our base template. We're never going to render this page, but what we'll do is inherit it from other templates like home, project, and contact. And then these blocks that we've specified here, we can override what exists inside of them. So from contact, home, projects, etc., we can override the template, or sorry, the title block, and we can change what the title of the website will be. Okay, that's the idea. Next, we're going to specify a link, and this link is going to be rel equal to style sheet, and we're going to say href is equal to, and then this is going to be %, and then static, and then this is going to be inside of single brackets css/base.css. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about this. First of all, notice we used double quotation marks here. Okay, very important. Then what we do is we use this kind of variable syntax. So we have the brace, the %sign, and then we say static. Now, when I say static, what that means is that I want to look inside of the static directory, which is what we've defined, and then inside of there, I'm looking for the path css base.css. Notice that this is inside of single quotes, and the reason it's in single quotes is because we use double quotes outside. So if we put double quotes here, we're going to get actually a linting error, or not a linting error, but it'll be an error when we try to execute this code. So we need to use single quotes instead. Okay, so what this is doing is loading the base.css style sheet, which I'm going to create now. So what we're going to do is go into static, CSS, and then we're going to make a base.css. Okay, this is where we can put any CSS that we want to apply to this page right here, which is our base template. Okay, now one more thing. Whenever you use this static keyword here and you're loading from the static directory, you need to first load the static directory. Now to do that, you're going to go to the very top of your file and you're going to write the following %, and then load static. Okay, what that will do is load the contents of the static directory, so you're able to actually reference it here and view this base.css file. Okay, now next thing we're going to do here is we're going to say %, block, and then extra head, and then we're going to say %, block, or sorry, end block like that, and then extra head. Now, I don't know actually if we need to specify that or not. Yes, I think we do. And then, sorry, up here where I have end block, we're just going to say end block title, because if you have multiple blocks, you need to write them by name. So we have block title, and then end block title, and then we have block extra head, and then end block extra head. Now, the reason I'm specifying a block here is that we may want to add extra style sheets from our child templates. So we can do that by inheriting and overriding this block. So we're just kind of specifying it here so that we're able to inject things into the head from contact, home, and project. Okay, now we're going to go inside of our body. Now for body, we're going to define a main component. And inside of main, we're just going to put a block. We're going to say block content, and then we're going to say %, and then end block content. This is where we're going to be able to put the main content. This is where we'll render most of the code or most of the HTML from the child templates. Then what we're going to do is have another block down here, and we're going to say block, and this is going to be extra underscore JavaScript, and then we're going to say %, and then end block extra underscore JS. This is so we're able to actually throw some JavaScript into our code from our child templates, because we want to put that at the very end of the body, so we're making a special block for that. Last thing we want to do is we want to create a header component here, and the header is just going to act as a nav bar that will exist on all of our different pages. Inside of the header, we're going to put a UL, and then we're going to say to end the UL, this is going to have a class equal to the navigation menu, and then we're going to have an li component or li element. Let's make sure we end that properly, and this is going to be a link, and we're going to say this is href to /home, and then we're going to call this home, and we're going to say /a like that, and then we're going to copy this and paste it, and rather than home, we're going to go to contact, and we're going to change that to say contact. Okay, so now what we've done is we've created a basic navigation bar, right, where we have a nav menu, and we have two elements, home and contact, that are links that we can click on, and we have this base template that we'll use to kind of show the same content or the same overall styling for our entire website. Now what we need to do is actually override or implement this template. In order to do that, we're going to go to home.html. Now from home.html, the first thing that we need to write is what template we're extending from or inheriting from. So we're going to say that this extends, and then we're going to say base.html. Then, similar to before, we're going to load static because we're going to need that here. And what we can start doing is overriding our different blocks. So now, rather than writing, and what happened here, let's fix that. So now, rather than writing all this HTML again and copying all of it over here, what we can do is just override the different blocks that we have. So I can take my block content, for example, and I can paste that here, and I can now write something like a paragraph tag and say, this is the home page. Okay? And now what I'm doing is I'm essentially injecting this HTML into this part of my template. Now we can do the same thing for our title. So let's just copy that and change this to say block title, and then title, and we can just call this homepage or something. And then if there's any other blocks that we wanted to inherit, we could do that. In this case, I'm just going to leave it like this because I want to show you this actually working. Okay, so now that we have the templates written, or at least most of them, we have the base template kind of finished, and we have our views hooked up to actually render these different templates. The last thing we need to do is write our different URLs. So we have the views, we know what to render, but we don't know how to actually get there. So what we're going to do is write what's known as our URL patterns. So I'm going to go to urls.py, and we're going to start doing that. So up here, I'm going to say from Django.urls, and we're going to import path, and then we're going to say from dot import and then views. And actually, now that I look at it, I don't even think we need this variable here, but we do need to spell views correctly. Okay, so from URL patterns, or sorry, we do need paths. I'm being stupid. Okay, paths and views. From URL patterns, we're going to write our different URL paths. So the first path we're going to have is just the empty path, meaning if you just go to /, it's going to go here. And what we're going to do is render views.home, and then we're going to give this a name. We're going to say name is equal to home. Then we're going to have another path, and we're going to say, okay, if you go to /home, or sorry, home/, important that you have the slash in the correct order here. Then we're going to render views.home, same thing. This will be name, home. The reason why I'm doing this twice is that if we go to nothing, I want to go to the home page, but if we go to home, I also want to go to the home page. So I'm just having multiple different paths that go to the same view. Then we're going to have another path, and this is going to be contact / and this is going to be views.contact, and then name equal to contact. Okay, then we're going to have another path, and this is going to be project, but this time when I go to a project, I need to actually know the ID of the project that I want to view, because this will view an individual project for me. So to do that, I'm going to embed what's known as a path variable. The path variable looks like this. You specify the type, then you specify the name, and then you put your trailing /. So I'm saying, okay, I want to go to project, and then some dynamic variable, so something like 1, 2, 3, whatever the ID of the project is. And then I'm going to say this is views.project, name equal to project. Now you'll notice if we go to views.py that I've actually written that here, right? So when I have this path variable, what will happen automatically is Django will pass that variable as an argument to the function that's rendering the view. So here it will pass the ID, and then we could use the ID to fetch that project and then display it, which is what we're going to do later. So now we have the URL patterns inside of urls.py. However, what we need to do is link URLs from our main Django project to this URLs file. Might seem a little bit weird, but the idea is that we have this main URLs file. Let me get rid of this comment so we can actually read what's inside of here. This file here specifies the root URLs for our project. Then what we can do is pass or forward the URL into a different app that we have in our Django kind of application or project. So let's look at how we do this. Well, to do this here, we're going to specify another path, and I'm just going to put the empty path. Now this means if you don't go to anything, so if you don't specify admin, you don't do anything, I'm going to take whatever else is included in this path, and I'm going to pass it over to my main.urls. Okay, bear with me here for a second. We're going to import include from this. So the way that this kind of works here is what I can do is I can specify something like main. Now if I do main slash here, what this means is that whenever I see main slash, whatever comes after the slash, I'm going to pass it over to my main.urls file, and then it's going to be handled from here. So if it looks like this, if I went to main slash home, then what would happen is I would trim off main because I see that right here, and I would take home and I would pass that to this URL patterns, where it would then be handled by this pattern here. In my case, since I'm not specifying anything, we're just going to take whatever the URL is and we're going to pass it over to main.urls where it can be handled there. The only exception is if you go to admin, since this is written first, then we're going to go to the admin site URLs, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so that's it for that. However, we do need to write something else in here to be able to access the different images that are going to be on our folder or on our server, sorry. So we're going to say from django.conf and this is going to be urls.static. We're going to import static and make sure we spell URLs correctly. We're then going to say from django.conf import settings. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a plus here to our URL patterns, and we're just going to add a pattern that allows us to actually access the images that are stored inside of this media directory. So we're going to say plus static, and then this is going to be settings dot the media underscore URL, which is what we defined previously. And we're going to say the document underscore root is equal to the settings dot media underscore root. Okay, so what this is pretty much saying is, hey, whenever we go to this slash media URL, we're going to go look inside of the media root, and that's going to contain the image that we're searching for. Might seem a bit weird, but that's kind of what we've been setting up this whole time, so that we can add this line right here and have a URL pattern that allows us to view that image and kind of host the image on our server. Okay, so now we have all of our URLs configured. It's possible I made a mistake, but let's go and run our server again. So Python 3 manage.py run server, and let's just see if we're able to render the home page. Then we can start actually displaying some content on it. So I'm going to view this and notice that we have home and contact, and it says this is the home page. And if I go to contact, we just get this because, well, there's nothing on the contact page. And if I go to home, it brings us to this same page. I know it seems really basic, but we're now well on our way to actually writing a good looking portfolio website. So we've got the URLs working. We are able to go to the home page. We're able to load this static CSS file. You can see all of the different URLs that we've gone to down here. We can now close this out with Control-C, clear, close the terminal, and start writing some more HTML code to kind of render this content on the screen and start really getting towards the end of the project. Okay, so let's go to home.html and let's start writing some content inside of here to actually render the different projects that we have. Then we can work on the contact and the project page. All right, so from our home.html, let's continue by actually overriding a few other blocks that we're gonna need. So we have the extending, we're loading static, and we're overriding title and content, but I also want to override my extra head and my extra JS block. So I'm going to say block extra head, and then %%, and then end block extra head. Okay, I'm then going to copy this, and I'm going to put this down here, and we're going to do the extra underscore JS and extra underscore JS. Now, what I'm going to do now, just to save us a bit of time for later, is I'm going to link to the style sheet that we'll have for this page, and I'm going to link to the JavaScript file for this page. Because I did say we're going to have some JavaScript in this project, we're going to use that to dynamically display different content on the page. So let's go to base.html, and let's just copy the link to this style sheet, and let's take it and paste it here. Now I'm just going to change from base.html to home.css, and I completely butchered saying that, but I mean, let's change from base.css to home.css, and now let's make a home.css file that we can place some CSS in later. Okay, now we need to write the code for our JavaScript link, so let's do that. So we're going to have a script tag here, and for the script, we need to make sure we end the script, and then this is going to say source is equal to, and we are going to have %%. Same thing as before, we're going to load static. It was single quotes, JS, and then home.js like that. Make sure we have our space. And now we can make a new file and call this home.js, where we'll write the JavaScript to handle the dynamic filtering and rendering of different content. Great, now I'm just going to format this so that it looks a little bit better. Perfect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this code and I'm going to copy it into project.html, and I'm going to copy it into contact.html. We're just going to make some very slight changes here because for all of these pages, we're also going to need some JavaScript and some CSS. So for contact, we actually don't need the JavaScript, sorry. So I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to go to where it says CSS home.css. I'm going to change this to contact.css. And we'll just change this to say contact page, and then we'll say this is the contact page. Okay, now we'll go to project. For project, we're just going to say project page. We'll change the CSS to say project.css, and then what else do we need to do? We can just say this is the project page, and then we're going to load the project.js. Because we are going to need some of that. Okay, so that should be it for these other pages for project and contact. I just figured we might as well do that. And then, sorry, while we're at it, let's go to CSS here and let's make those files. So project.css, and we will load the contact.css, and then we'll have JS, and this will be the project.js, just so that all our files are linked and created, and we're not going to forget those later on. Okay, so great. So let's close all that. And let's go back into home, and now let's start writing the code that we need. So the idea is, in the home page, we want to have all of the different projects, and we want to display them. Now what that means is that we need to pass the projects to this page, and then we need to render them dynamically on the screen. Now we also want to display the different tags on the screen, and these tags will allow us to filter the different projects. So we need two things here. We need the tags, and we need the projects. So what we need to do is pass them in, and to pass them in, we're going to have to go to our views.py file. Now from our views.py file, we're going to go to the home view, and we're going to write some very simple code that will just get all of the different projects, and we'll get all of the different tags, and we'll pass them into the template so that we can access them. So to do that, we're going to start by saying projects are equal to the project.objects.all. Now what this does is just give us access to all of the different projects that we've created. That's it, and that's why using the ORM, the Object Relational Mapper from Django, is so nice. Next, we're going to get access to all the tags. So we're going to say tags is equal to tag.objects.all. Okay, perfect. And now what we can do is pass a dictionary, and the dictionary will contain key value pairs that we can pass into the template that we can use to render different dynamic data. So I'm going to have a key for projects, and you guessed it, that's going to be associated with my projects. And then I'll have one for tags, and that will be associated with my tags. Okay, so that's how we render this dynamic data, and we pass it into the template. Now what will happen is in the home.html template, we'll have access to the variable projects, which will contain a list of all of our projects, and to the variable tags, which will contain a list of all of our tags. So now let's go into home.html, and let's start using these different variables that we've passed in. So the first thing we'll do is render our different tags. So inside of the block content, we're going to create a div. Let's end the div here. And inside the div, I'm going to make a class, and let's call this equal to filters. Okay, so we'll start by writing the filters, which will be a kind of search text filter, and then all of the different tags that we can click on that will then show a different project. So we're going to show an input. For the input, we're going to say type is equal to text. And then we're going to say ID is equal to the name search. And then we're going to say the placeholder is equal to, and this is going to be search by name, ... You can change this if you want, but this is what I'll use for now. Next, we're going to have a div, and this div will display all of our tags. Again, if you're getting overwhelmed, you can copy this from the GitHub. I'm going to say the class is equal to the tags list. Then inside the div, I'm going to use a for loop, and I'm going to render all of my different tags. So this is where the templating comes in. I'm going to say for tag in tags. The only reason I can do this is because I've passed this tags variable into the template from my views file, and then I'm going to do a %%, and I'm going to end my for loop. Now inside of the for loop, I can put something here that I want to be rendered every iteration of the for loop. And what do I want that to be? Well, I want that to be my tag. So I'm going to say button, and we'll close the button. And then the name of the button is going to be, and we're going to have a set of double braces here. This is how we actually grab a variable and render it inside of the template. And I'm going to say tag.name. So whenever I actually want to display one of my Python variables in the HTML, I can use these two braces like this. Okay, so that's going to be the name of my button. And then the class is going to be a tag, because we're going to style this later. And then we're going to have the data tag. So what's actually, what we're actually accessing when we click on this button. And then same thing, we're going to use our double brace. And we're going to say this is tag.name. And then we're going to put a pipe, and we're going to put lower. Now what this is I believe it's called a content filter. There might be a more specific name for it, but pretty much what this will do is just convert the tag.name to lowercase. The reason for that is so that when we do the filtering, we don't have any issues with capitalization, and any tags that have the same value, even if it's different capitalization, will show up. So that's what we're doing there, data tag, tag.name, and then we're piping it or filtering it to be .lower, and that's how we're displaying our buttons. Let me just move this over here so we can see everything. Okay, so you know what, before I go too much further, let's run this and see if we get all of our different tags appearing on the screen. So I'm going to go python3 manage.py. Let's open this up, and notice we have Python, Game, CSS, React, and JavaScript. So the different tags we added from the admin panel, as well as the search bar, are appearing on the screen. Fantastic. Now we're going to style this at the very end, so don't worry about how it looks for now. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's just close this. We can leave it running for right now. And let's make another div, this time to display the projects. So we're going to make a div. We're going to say the class on this one is the projects list. Make sure you type all of these classes, by the way, because I have a bunch of CSS that will perform this styling for you, but you need to make sure you have the classes and the IDs correct. Okay, so now same thing as before, we're going to write a for loop to loop through all of the projects that we have. So we're going to say for project in projects, and then we're going to say %% and for. Okay, and then inside of here, what do we want to do? We're going to have a div. Okay, the div is going to have a class. This is going to be a project. It's going to have a data name. We're going to need this for the JavaScript filtering. So similar to before, we're going to do that this is the project.title, and then we're going to pipe this again over into lowercase. Inside of the div here, we're going to have something else. So for the data name, we're also going to have the data-tags. And then here for the tags, we're going to have project.tags.all. And then again, we're going to use one of these filters, and we're going to say join, colon, single quotes, comma, space, colon, lower. Okay, I know that was a lot. Let me see if I can format this so that we can read it a little bit easier. Let's zoom out. Okay, so we have a div, class, project. Data name is project.title, and then we're converting that to lowercase. Then we have our data tags, and this is our project.tags.all. This gives us all of the different tags. Notice it's not quite Python syntax, but it's very similar to what it would be. Then what we do is we apply the join on this. Now what we're doing is we're joining these with commas so that we get kind of like the string join of all of these. And then we're converting all of those to lowercase. Okay. Then inside of the div, what I'm going to do is I'm going to display the name of the project. So I'm going to say h2, and let's close the H2, and this is going to be a link, and then we're going to say href, and then inside of here, the href is going to be to %%, and this is the URL, and then in single quotes, project, and then the project.id. And then what we're going to have is the project.title, like that. Okay, that's for our H2 tag. We also need to close the A tag, so let's do that. Now beneath that, we're going to display the description of the project. So we're going to say project.description, and then close the P tag, if we can type that correctly. And then we're going to have the tags. So now we're going to say tags, colon, and what we can do is simply copy what we had up here. So project.tags.join, but we won't apply the lower this time. Okay, and then we need to make sure that we just put this inside of our double braces. Okay, I believe that's going to be it for now. I know that this looks fairly messy and it's kind of difficult to follow along with. Feel free to pause the video and type it out. But the reason why we need these data names and data tags is so when we get into the JavaScript and we apply our filtering, it's actually going to work, and we can view these different divs that have these different tags. Okay, so let's go back here. I want to open up my browser. Okay, I guess we're just going to have to do it from down here. All right, open this up. And now you can see that we have our different tags are now working, and we have our project. So it says Python platformer. This is a link that I can click on. Okay, we have our tags, Python and game, and then we have the description. And if we had multiple different projects, it would display all of the different projects for us. Perfect. Okay, so now that we've done that, what we probably want to do is start writing some JavaScript that can filter these different projects. Then we'll write the project page so we can view an individual project. So let's go into our static.js and home.js, where we're going to start writing that JavaScript. All right, so let's begin by having the following. We're going to say document.add event listener. And then for this, we're going to say DOM content loaded. We're going to have a function, and the function is going to be all of the code that we write here. Now, the point of this is that as soon as the DOM content is loaded, and only then will we start executing this code. That way we can actually find all of the elements that we're looking for. So we're going to begin by looking for a few target elements. The first one is going to be our name search, which is that input field where we can actually search for the name of a project. Now this is going to be document.get element by ID, and the ID of this element is the name search field, or the name search ID. Next, we want to have all of our tags. So we're going to say this is document.querySelectorAll, and we want to select all of the elements that have the class.tag. And then we want to get all of our projects. So it's going to be projects equals document, if we spelled that correctly, dot query selector all. And again, same thing. This is going to be dot project. Okay, so the first filtering we can apply is based on the search field, and then we can do the tags. So we're going to make a function, and we're going to call this filter and then projects. Now inside of filter projects, the first thing we need to do is get the value of the name search field. So we're going to say const name query is equal to the name search, okay, dot value, and then this is dot to lowercase. Okay, so we're just converting that to lowercase. Now what we're going to do is loop through all of the projects that we have, and we're going to see if the query that we searched for is in the project name. If it is, we'll leave it there. Otherwise, we'll remove it. So we're going to say projects.forEach, and then inside of here, we're going to have a project. Okay, we're going to have an arrow function, and we're going to say the name is equal to project.get attribute, and we're going to get the data name attribute from our project. So that is why we had to write the data name and the data tags attribute so that we can actually access it and see if this project matches the filter. Then we're going to have const name match is equal to name.includes, and we're going to see if it includes the name query. So we're just searching for a string inside of another string. If it does, so if name match, then what we'll do is say project.style, not sure why I did that, .display is equal to nothing. Otherwise, we'll copy this and we'll make it equal to none. That's it. So all this is doing here, and we'll link this up in 1 second, is we're searching through all of the different projects. We're looking at the name of that project. And if the name query that we search for exists inside of that name, then we're going to keep this project. The way we'll keep it is by making sure the display property is just blank. Otherwise, we set the display to none, and that effectively is going to hide this element. Great. Now what we need to do, though, is we need to add an event listener for this function. So we're going to say name search dot add event listener, and the event listener is going to be on key up. So anytime you finish typing or lift your key up, then we are going to call this function, which is filter projects. Okay, so that should work for now, and then we need to do the one for the tags. So what we'll do is go back here, we will refresh, and if I search something like hello world, we can see that nothing is happening. So what we can do is click on inspect, right click on the wheel, and click on empty cache and hard reload just to make sure we load the JavaScript. And if I type something like hello world or Python, okay, seems like it's still not working, which tells me we probably have some kind of error. Let's go back and try again. Okay guys, give me 1 second. I'm gonna look at this and see why this is not loading. All right, so I've made a very silly error here. I've typed SCR for my script instead of SRC, so it was never actually linking my JavaScript file, hence why nothing was loading. So I've just fixed that here on line 32. That was in my home.html file. Now I had some comments in here just to test this out, so let's remove those comments for now. And let's go back here and refresh and start typing. And we can see now that we get a different error. It says HTML input element filter projects issue reading to lowercase. Okay, let's have a look at that and see what that issue is. Okay, another silly error here. For some reason, my autocomplete would have replaced value with area value max, which is not what I wanted. So let's make sure that says value. I'm sure you guys probably caught that when that happened. And let's go back here and refresh and type something like test. And you can see now that it goes away because it doesn't match the filter. Whereas if I type Python platformer, it's still there until I type something that doesn't exist in the string. Okay, so it is correctly filtering through our elements. Obviously, if we had more of them, it'd be easier to test it, but you can see this is indeed working, and the JavaScript for that is good. So next thing we need to do now is filter based on our tags. So let's start writing the JavaScript code that can do that. So what I can do here is let's just move this down and move this over so we have some more space. I can write tags dot for each because we need to loop through all of our tags here. We're going to grab the tag. And what we're going to do is add an event listener for every single one of our tags. So we're going to say tag.add event listener. The event listener will be if we click on the tag. If we do, we're going to call a function, and that function will be the following. First, we're going to say const selected tag is equal to this dot get attribute, and we're going to get the attribute data dash tag. Okay, that's what we've put on the tag that tells us the name of the tag. Then after we do that, we're going to say projects.forEach, and we're going to say project, and then we'll write our arrow function. And inside of here, we're going to say const project tags is equal to project.get attribute, and we're going to get the attribute of, you guessed it, data tags, that really annoying one that we wrote out. Now we need to see if the project tags dot includes the selected tag. So that's what we're doing. If it does include the selected tag, then we're going to say project dot style dot display is equal to an empty string. Otherwise, we will say project dot style dot display is equal to none. Okay. That's it. That's all we need. So we're doing the same thing effectively that we did here when we're hiding or showing the element, but this time we're just doing it for all of the different tags, and that's why we need this tag.event listener for each tag. Great. So let's try this out now. Go back here, refresh. Let's click on JavaScript. You see that goes away because it doesn't match. Let's click on game. You see it shows up because it does match. Obviously, this is a pretty simple filter. You might want to actually have multiple selectable tags and have maybe checkboxes or something. But for now, we're just making it so when you click on one, it shows you all the projects that are in that category. Sweet. So that's how that works for our kind of project page here, filtering the projects. Now what we want to do is actually display the project on the project page. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go over to our project.html, We're going to move or remove all of this. And we're going to go to views.py now, and we're going to pass the individual project that we need to this project page. Now, in order to do that, we're just going to go inside of here. And we're going to say project is equal to get object or 404. And we're going to say that this is project, and then primary key is equal to the ID that was passed here. Now, all we'll do is we'll say project : project. And what we're doing is passing in now a dictionary that contains this project. So this is a helper function you can use in Django. All this is going to do is look for a model that contains this key. So in this case, we're looking for the primary key, which will be the ID that we've specified in this project model. If it exists, it will return it. Otherwise, it will render a 404 page. That's exactly what we want. And then what we do here is we use this and we pass it to the template. So now we have a project variable that contains the project information. So now let's go back into project.html and let's write the code to display an individual project. Now, first things first, let's display the style sheet, which we're already doing. Okay, good check. Now let's go into content and let's write all of the code that we need. So let's write a div. Let's end the div. For the div, we're going to have a class, and this is going to be the project-cart. Then we're going to have a div and another div. This is going to have a class. This is going to be project-info. Okay. Inside of the project info, we're going to display, well, the info for the project. So we're going to have an h1 tag. And then for the h1 tag, we're going to render a dynamic variable, which is going to be project.title. Okay. Then we're going to have a paragraph tag. Let's end the paragraph tag. And we're going to have an a tag and the a tag. This is going to say the GitHub link, or let's actually change this to project link. For the href, this is going to be equal to the project.link, okay, because we want to display the link to the project. Then we're going to have a paragraph tag, and we're going to display the project description. So project.description, and then we're going to display the URL that allows us to go back to the home page. So we're going to say href is equal to, and this is going to be %%, and then URL, and then single quotes, home. So this will bring us back to the home page, and then we're just going to say back to home, and then we'll end that link. And then we're going to have another div that's going to display all of the different images. So what we want to do is actually display these images in a carousel so that we can kind of swipe between them, because we could have one image, we could have 5 images, right? We could have multiple images. So that's what I'm going to do here. Now this is where we'll need the JavaScript so that we can display the images and kind of change which ones we're rendering on the screen. So we're going to have a div. This is going to say class is equal to carousel. Okay, now let's go /div. Then we're going to have another div, and this is going to say class is equal to carousel-images. Okay, let's end the div so I don't forget. Then we're going to display some images. So we're going to say %% for image in project.images.all. Let's end the for loop. Okay, so %% and 4. Now inside of here, we're going to display some divs for each of our images. So we're going to say class is equal to a carousel dash, and this will be item actually. Then we're going to do a /div. Then we're going to display the image. So we're going to say image, and this can be a self-enclosed tag. We're going to say the source is equal to the image.image.url. And then we're going to say the alt is equal to, and this is actually just say project image. Okay, so that's almost it. Let's just format this so that it looks a little bit nicer. And then inside of this carousel div here, we're just going to have 2 links that allow us to control the carousel so that we can go to the left and to the right. So we're going to have a, and this is going to say class is equal to the carousel, and then control, and then this is going to say previous. Then we're going to say on click is equal to, and we're going to call a JavaScript function called move slide, and we're going to move the slide -1 because we're going left. Okay, then we're going to close the a tag, and then here we're going to put a special symbol. I'm going to copy it in, which will give us a caret that is going to the left. Okay, now we'll copy this and we'll paste it and we'll change this to say next, and we'll change the move slide to say 1. And then rather than 94, this is going to be 95. So we get the caret going to the right. Okay, so that's all the HTML that we need. For now, none of this is really going to work because we haven't written the JavaScript, but we can at least go to it and see what it looks like with a single image. And then I want to create another project that has multiple images so we can actually test this out when we write the JavaScript code. So again, let's apply a format here. Let's go and let's save and let's click on this. And notice when I go here, it shows me the image. Now you'll see that we have these carets to the left and to the right. We're going to style them so that they look nicer, but when we click on these, they should alternate the image. But you can see that we have Python Platformer, project link, we have the text, and then we have the image. And if we had multiple images, this would work. Okay, so let's now go here. Let's add another image, and then let's write the JavaScript that allows us to actually change the images around. All right, so let's go into project.js, and let's write the JavaScript code that can handle this for us. Now, the basic idea here is we just want to only show one of the images at a time. So we'll do some CSS styling later that makes it look better, but the point here is that we'll only show the image that's at the index that we're currently on. So we're going to say let slide index equal 1. We're then going to say show slides with the slide index, and we're going to call a function that we're going to write now. So we're going to say function, and then this is show slides, and this is going to take in n, which is our index. Now the point here is that all we're going to do is we're just going to hide all the images that aren't the current index and display the one that is. So we're going to say let I, we're going to say let slides equal document.get elements by class name. And this is going to be a char sol item. So all of our item divs, we're going to get those. And we're going to say if n is greater than the slides.length, so the number of slides that we have, then we're going to say that the slide index is equal to 1. Okay, this is just to make sure that we're going in a circular motion. So as soon as n hits the number of images that we have, we just go back to the first index. We're now going to say if n is less than 1, then what we want to do is go circular in the other direction. So we're going to say the slide index is equal to the slides.length. So we go to the back, whereas here we're going to the front. All right. Then we're going to say for, and actually we don't need to do it the way I did here. We'll just say for let I equal 0, I is less than slides.length, and then I plus plus. And we're going to say slides I dot style dot display is equal to none. So this is just hiding all of the different slides that we have. Then we're going to say slides at the slide index minus 1 dot style dot display is equal to flex, and that just effectively is going to display this for us. Okay, so that's really all we're doing. We're looping through all of the different, so we're getting all the slides, that we have. We're checking kind of that circular motion with n to see if we need to go backwards or if we need to go forwards. Then we're looping through all of the slides, we're making all of them hidden, and then we're just displaying the one that we're currently on. Last thing we need to do is make another function, and this function will be move slide, and this is going to take in n, and then what we're going to do is say show slides, and we're going to show the slide index plus equals n. Okay, now we could actually just do this like this. We'll say slide index plus equals n, and then we'll just display this. So this way we can move by as many kind of elements as we want. So we can move by 1, we can move by -1, 2, 3, whatever. So first I'm just going to increment the slide index, and then I'm just going to display the slide index here. I was going to do it in a fancy way there, but I don't want to confuse anyone with that syntax. Okay, so now we have the move slides function, and from here you'll see that that's what we're calling, right? Move slide, and did I call it slides or slide? Okay, slide, good. So this way we're going back -1, this way we're going forward 1, and then we're calling show slides, and the reason we call this immediately is that we only show the starting slide. Perfect, so let's try this out now. I did actually add some more images to my Python platformer, so if I refresh and go here, you can see that we're showing 2 images, which actually makes it seem like this is not working. So let's go here and refresh, and we're probably running into the same error we had before where we have SCR. This needs to be SRC. Okay. Let's refresh, and now you see we only have 1 image. And if I go here and click forward, it shows the next image. Forward shows the next image, right? So I just have 2 now. I removed the other one that we have. And you can see that we can cycle between them. Obviously, this looks really, really bad though, so we should apply some styling, which is what I'm gonna do now so that it looks a lot better. All right, so at this point, all of the coding that I'm gonna do in this video is actually finished. And what we're gonna do now is some styling. Now, I really don't like just sitting in front of you and writing a bunch of CSS code. I find that you're not really going to learn that much from it, and I'm not a CSS expert. Most of the CSS I have, I just find online, or I kind of toy with quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is just copy in all of the relevant CSS, and I'll tell you where you can find it. Now, you can feel free to restyle this website if you want. You can change it around. But again, I just don't find a lot of value in me typing it in front of you. So I'm just going to copy it in and show you what file it's supposed to go in. So let's start by styling the page we just did. So we're going to go to CSS and then project.css. Now, the way you would find the code that I'm about to copy in here is you would simply go and find this file from the GitHub link below. So open up GitHub, right? Go into portfolio, go into main, go into static, go into CSS, find project.css. And if you're doing this with me, just take the contents of that file and copy it inside of here, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Feel free to read through all of the code. I'm not going to walk you through it in this video because this is not a CSS tutorial. And now once we apply that, if we go here and we refresh, you might see that nothing happens. Now, if nothing happens, that means you should right click up here and click empty cache and hard reload. Once you do that, what you'll see is that the styling will be applied. And the reason why you need to do that is because sometimes it doesn't actually load and it caches the previous CSS file. So you need to empty the cache and hard reload in order for it to load properly. Now you're seeing some issue with the carets here. Once we apply the styling for the other pages, this should be fixed. So let's go ahead and actually test that out. Otherwise, I will fix this for you in the video. Okay, so we've done project.css. Now we're gonna go into home.css and we're gonna copy this in. So we go home.css and copy the contents of the home.css file. And we're going to do base.css as well. So I'm going to go to base.css, okay, and paste in that and then format it. Okay, so let's go here and let's go empty cache and hard reload. Still looks like my carets are not being fixed, so I will, I guess, need to go fix those. But you can see now that the nav bar is looking better. And if I go to the home page, now everything looks quite a bit better. We get these nice, pretty cards. And if I click here and apply the filtering, it does actually work. I can click on this and it brings me to this page. Now what I wanted is these carets to actually be on the image. So let me see if I can fix that for you and then I'll be right back. So of course, just another silly error here, guys. On my A tags, I forgot to add carousel control. So I need to have the T because I spelled this incorrectly. So of course they just weren't being picked up and styled. So now if I go back here and I fix this, you can see that now my carets are actually on the image and we can scroll through them. Okay, perfect. So we go back to home and then obviously the contact page. This is a page I wanted to leave for you guys to write yourself. I just thought, let's have a page, let's link it up, and then let's let you guys write this however you want and give you kind of some homework and something that you can continue to do. Okay, so with that said, I believe I'm gonna wrap up the video here. I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope this gave you a solid template for a portfolio resume or portfolio project in Python. I know that this is pretty straightforward. However, this is a really good base. This gets you started, and now it's really easy for you to add additional pages to make the projects better, to continue to style this. Obviously, I don't really want to do a 10 or 12 hour long video to really build this out to the stage you'd want it to be at. And in fact, I shouldn't do that because you guys should really build these projects on your own once you get the base set up. Anyways, I hope it helped you with that, and I look forward to seeing you in another YouTube video.